Sami, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. Yeah, my pleasure.
HSBC, Deloitte, and then you start your own company. How did you know that that was the right time?
Oof, I don't think I knew it was the right time. That's for sure. It took a lot of courage at the time. But I mean, look, myself and Bilal, my co-founder, we were very unhappy at the bank. We were there for a number of years, and just seeing how poor the practice is in wealth advisory in the region, especially in any bank. That was really sort of the nudge to go, okay, well, either we move to a different bank and it's going to be the same problem, the same misalignment of clients' interest in the banks. And so we decided, okay, if we were to build our own proposition, how would that look? And yeah, that was the leap of faith.
Have you talked to other people in other banks to just get the feel of how things are happening in different institutions?
For sure, for sure. I mean, look, UAE, don't forget, it's a small market, right? So we know people in every bank, whether they're in the heads of wealth, heads of private banking, local versus international. So we know who's who and where they are, and um, it's the same thing across these firms. I think it's just there's a misalignment of incentives, right? So just to sort of paint a picture here, the bank obviously has a P&L, and they have certain products that if they sell, they make higher commissions, higher incentives for the advisor. And so that misalignment is what creates the problem, right? Whether you go to the UBSs, the Julius Baers, they're pushing structured products on clients, unless you're a $50 billion plus relationship, it's not worth their time. And then in the retail space, again, you walk into a branch today, and they're going to push an insurance, investment linked policy because it just makes a lot more upfront commission, right? What our focus really is we're not reinventing wealth management. Wealth management is very much about diversification, finding low cost solutions. You can, look at ETFs as an example, whether they're actively managed or passively managed. Clients, what they're really looking for is that human advisor to guide them, handhold them, and help them plan for their financial objectives. The end solution is not, we're not reinventing, right? Today, through a trading app, one can access all these types of solutions, right? We're here to bridge the gap for people who seek advice and shouldn't be burnt with, crappy products.
We'll get to the details of Vault, but just I want to
So
take a step back. How did you know that your co-founder was the right person to start a business with?
I like that question. So look, he was in the bank years before me. When I first joined, I joined the team. At the time, it was with HSBC Jade, which is the $1 to $10 million segment that we focused on. And it was very quick. I mean, it was very apparent that he was the only one really doing things the right way. I don't exaggerate. I mean, we were a team of 15 plus advisors. And I would go and see like how they, speak to their clients, what sort of type of products they're advising on. And it was a stark difference between what Bilal was doing. And so I sort of went under his wing. He was, a bit more experienced than me. And I went to meetings with him and I saw the way he delivered the advice, and sort of his process to help the client and educate them. And it was so apparent. He then became my team manager as well when they restructured the team. So he was my team lead. And he was very much like, Sammy, look, you focus on helping clients build your book. When I say build my book, I mean gain more assets under management, and do things the right way. And it'll happen, right? Once clients can trust you, they'll refer their friends, they'll refer their family. And that's what happened. I started off with a few clients. Those clients trusted me. And then so I was able to build my book very fast, rather than just looking at the incentive of, okay, well, I have a target. I have to make this much revenue. It was very hard to meet those revenue targets doing things the right way. But because Bilal was my team lead, he said, forget it. Like I'll fight on your behalf to the upper management. But there were moments where they would tell us like, hey, like why aren't you selling these products? You're not hitting your revenue targets. And for me, it was like, I don't care. I have the client's trust, right? And that's going to stay with me forever.
And finance is a sensitive topic, whether you're talking about individual finance, corporate finance, any kind of conversation involving money is sensitive. So,
Of
are there
course.
any regulations or maybe the fact that people are more conservative in the field, are these hurdles for Vault or? Is that
Yeah.
something you expected?
Yeah, look, I mean, when we left so as soon as we left the bank, first step is to get regulated, right? And we know it was going to take time. We knew it was going to take a lot of effort and resources. We had an agent, a consultancy to sort of guide us through that application. I think the strength we had was we came from the industry, right? We had the experience, the credentials to set up and lead a wealth management firm. The technology part is what I think took more time to present to the regulator, right? Because they see it as a higher risk. If you're just a traditional business, it's usually just you follow X, Y, Z steps and you're licensed, right, within a year. With the technology enablement, you kind of have to demonstrate the safety of the platform. We do cybersecurity assessments, penetration testing. So all in all, it was a fairly long process, but expected. You have different jurisdictions in the UAE. You have the DIFC in Dubai, you have the ADGM in Abu Dhabi, you have central bank ESCA onshore. We decided to go to the Abu Dhabi route just because they're just the conversation between us and the regulator was far more proactive versus how it would have been, I think, in DIFC. And Abu Dhabi is growing very fast as a jurisdiction in the UAE, and yeah, we're sort of very happy to be part of that ecosystem.
So let me read this. Vault is the modern private banking experience that brings unrivaled access to every investment solution, all without conflict of interest. So you mentioned conflict of interest earlier, but can you elaborate again? What did what do you actually do? What do you provide, and how is it different than traditional banking?
Yeah, perfect. So imagine you're a client today, or so the journey is as follows. So you would sign up to the platform, and once you sign up to the platform, you get access to a dedicated wealth advisor dedicated to you. The first interaction is a complimentary financial planning meeting, which is something that's unseen in the region. What I mean by that is you meet with an advisor. They first want to understand what's your financial circumstance. What are your assets? Do you have properties in different countries? Do you have bank accounts? Do you have investment portfolios? It's understand your assets, understand your liabilities, understand your income, your expenses. And then it's okay, what is your objective? Right. So today you might tell me, well, Sami, by 55, I want to retire with a passive income of $10,000 a month. Okay, well, let's plan that out. That's your objective. And basically we would create a gap analysis. So today you're here with your assets and versus liabilities. This is the objective, to reach retirement at 55 with X lump sum. We bridge the gap. Then the second phase is that's the complementary financial planning meeting. You could literally take that plan and go and execute on that plan somewhere else. The value prop we then bring to the table is say, okay, well, on the platform, we can now help you build a personalized portfolio that meets that financial objective of yours, whether it's diversified public equities, diversified bonds, thematic allocations, private market allocations. So it's really about executing on that and doing portfolio asset allocation. And then really it's there to be holding or guiding our clients through that journey, right? So, each quarter we meet with the client to do a quarterly review. Sometimes their client circumstances has changed. Sometimes the portfolio needs rebalancing. Um, we really focus on education as well. So today, I'll give an example. I had a client who's 65. He first invested with me through HSBC. He didn't invest in it at all in his whole life, except for real estate and cash. So I had to educate him around diversified funds, equities versus bonds. His risk tolerance was very low, right? So he didn't want to take volatility risk. He didn't believe in the equity market. So we looked at a very balanced portfolio, conservative, a 60-40, just 60% equities, 40% bonds. 3 years later, and he invested at the height of the market, post-COVID when the market rallied up. It took him a couple of years to see his portfolio sort of break even again, right? Because market was at a high, slight correction. Today, 3 years plus in the future, my client now is happy to go full equities. He's gone through the journey. He's realized it's all about long term. Forget the noise, forget the short term volatility. When Trump is announcing tariffs and changes his mind, volatility markets will react, right? There's these knee jerk reactions that the market falls into, and clients unfortunately get burnt through. Our job is to say, remember the objective. It's a long term plan, and that's really it. And we have a beautiful mobile app, web app for clients to log in, see their portfolio, they can really take control and sort of be empowered. So they don't have to meet with an advisor at any point. If they want to do an FX, they can do it themselves. If they want to top up in their portfolio, they can do it themselves. If they want to withdraw, they have access to that. So we really give them the tools, but the advisor is there to just really be a guide the whole time.
They buying equity directly in the app?
Yeah, exactly. So our app has an API integration with interactive brokers. So we don't hold client money. That's one of our value propositions as well, is that we don't want to hold client money. So your account is with interactive brokers, publicly listed on the Nasdaq, one of the biggest trading platforms, has access to every product. We're there as a middle layer. We have an API integration. The client can literally invest in a portfolio that's, let's say, 7 funds, and that order is sent through, executed, right? One thing, by the way, sorry, just because I remembered the conflict of interest value prop that we mentioned. What we mean by that is our wealth advisors are not incentivized by the product. We don't get kickbacks from the fund managers, which again with banks they take a kickback from the fund manager. For us, the advisor is incentivized to build AUM, whether the client's in cash, in equities, in bonds, the incentive remains the same. And that's really the conflict of interest that we try to highlight to our clients.
And you talked about journey. It's because, like you said, it takes time for these investments to mature. So how are you able to convince people to trust you over a long period of time? Do you build this like every step of the way? Because you can't have face-to-face meetings with everyone
Sure.
every day or every week, right? So how do you build this trust?
So it's a good point. Look, I mean, first of all, there's a lot the interaction with the client is very much high touch in the beginning, right? So when I first meet with our clients, yeah, it could take multiple meetings, every few days to every week to really sort of educate them and understanding what's our philosophy and what is wealth management, right? But eventually, once the client reaches that sort of, okay, I'm going to start with an initial deposit. So, a client today, it takes them around 2 months on average to first deposit their first amount. Once they've done that, it takes them around 2 months to 3x that first initial deposit. And why that's an important metric that we look at is because it's exactly what you said. There is time needed to really help the client feel comfortable with and trust us. We're a new brand as well into the market, and building trust takes time. But we really, we're very transparent around. Well, one, your investments are managed by the best in class fund managers, right? So your money is being managed by JP Morgan with us, BlackRock, Vanguard, right? So that's number one. When it comes to custody and safety, again, I really highlight that interactive brokers, publicly listed, you can feel very much safe that your assets are held safely. We are the advisory layer, right? And so I think it's just really touching on you know, sort of the partners we have around us, and I think that helps really build trust fast. Um, Today, like I said, once a client's fully invested with us, not only are they now only meeting on a quarterly basis, sometimes even every 6 months. Don't forget, our clients are working hard in their careers. They don't have time to meet. The private banking model is I'm going to have a lunch every month with my client. Clients today, they're like, I'm busy. I have my family to deal with that I want to see after work. I have my job that I need to focus on. I don't need you to wine and dine me anymore, right? And I think that's what we're trying to sort of highlight. But at the same time, we're very much approachable. Today on the app, you could literally book a meeting with your advisor. So there's an open calendar. You can WhatsApp them. There's a WhatsApp link. You can call them. So again, the transparency around who your advisor is and that they're there by your side is very much part of the value proposition.
You briefly touched on the local culture of their perception on investing in something other than real estate. Do you feel
Yeah.
like you're putting in a lot of education inside your app? Like, do you spend a lot of time educating people about the ups and downs and alternative investments? Is this like core, and is this something that you teach your employees as well to like take their time to really educate people about the other possibilities?
For sure. So on our product roadmap, one of the biggest sort of epics or features that we're working on is we call pre-invest journey. When I say pre-invest journey is when you enter the platform today, it's really adding more content, whether it's short video format, whether it's articles, touching on exactly what you said. We even have a foundations piece. It's what are equities, what are bonds, what's real estate versus equities. We really tried to highlight that because, like you said, there's a huge bias towards real estate in the region. Culturally, as Arabs in the Middle East, we didn't have capital markets like the US and Europe, right? So if someone was making hundreds of thousands, millions in savings, it was buy a property, rent it out, get a rental income. What we try to do is highlight how equities are almost the same as real estate. You invest in a company, you become a shareholder. This company is growing its earnings. It either issues dividends, either retains that, and the growth of the valuation of the business grows. And it's really trying to just use that parallelism of real estate versus equities. Our advisors, when our advisors really when they join us, what's beautiful is they join us because they believe in our mission, they believe in our approach to how to advise clients. And so we don't really have to sort of tell them, you should be speaking to clients this way, you should be educating them. They already know. They already know that to convert a client for the first time, if they're a first time investor, yeah, that's crucial. And the app is really now the app we built since we launched is more on the investment execution, the live reporting, the financial planning, but education now is a big part for sure.
It's been a couple of years now. So, what has been the most challenging part in running your own business? Something that you weren't prepared for?
Yeah, so many things, right? Look, I mean, I'm a wealth advisor by trade, private banker. So I think the technology side took a lot of learning. Understanding what a front end developer versus back end and how to build an application. So upskilling there. I think then it was about the investor relations and how to raise venture capital money. And how do you pitch to a VC? I think that took a lot of learnings, which we didn't expect the fundraising to be as much of a challenge. I thought we were sort of naive to think, well, we came from the industry, we already had clients, and it was like a no-brainer to sort of back us, which wasn't quite the case. So that was something that came as a slight surprise. Otherwise, I think hiring teams and unfortunately we have a high turnover because we're a small business and so every person we hire has to be just 10 out of 10, high performer. And so that took sort of iterations to get right, which we now have. Um, Other than that, the yeah, I think those were the main surprises. If anything, the business was growing at such a good pace, and we were never worried. When people asked us like about, okay, are you worried about failing and sort of not growing? For Bilal and I, that was the least of our issues. I think we were very confident clients would come on board. We were very confident that clients would start referring. But I think it was building a business from scratch, managing stakeholders, shareholders. That was the sort of biggest challenge we've gone through.
The UAE is known to be a place where everyone with money wants to go because of many reasons. Are you dealing with a diverse set of clients, or are they all locals? Do you have different strategies to approach different cultures? How do you deal with this aspect?
A good question. So I'll give you the data. So 80% of our clients are expats residing in the UAE. A majority of them are Middle Eastern expats, Jordanian, Lebanese, Palestinian, etc. But we also have European clients and British clients. The other 10%, I would say, is GCC, mainly Saudi, and of course UAE. And then the other 10% and we have clients that have come from Indonesia, Philippines, South Africa. What's nice is the UAE has become a global booking center. Typically in the past it was the Switzerland, right? Then it became Singapore, Hong Kong. But the UAE now, regionally was always the strongest, but on a global level now, a lot of wealth migrating here. Interesting metrics as well that we've seen is the clients who have $1 million plus with us, our clients that have been residing here for quite a long time. They've been burnt by the banks, right? They've been burnt by the banks. They understand they don't need much education because they really already understand our approach, our philosophy to how to manage wealth, and so they just resonate with the proposition. And so those are the sort of the big clients we have. Saudi is an interesting one because it's a big market. And again, it's a very close neighbor to the UAE. So a lot of Saudis do, travel to the UAE and some are looking for sort of an offshore proposition to partner with, to build a relationship with. So that's something that we're seeing. UAE, like local Emirati clients, and I've seen this through the banks as well. They're very risk averse, right? They're very much used to the real estate and cash, fixed deposits. So the conversion time for them or the education efforts is far bigger. And so not saying it's definitely a demographic we still want to approach, attract, and to build on. But mainly UAE expats is the core like client persona we have.
Let me ask you this. Do you fear that the culture in the banking industry will shift, which would pose a threat to what you're building? Do you think this is going to happen anytime soon?
Look, so I'll separate private banks with retail banks. It's slightly different objectives, let's say. So on the retail banking, don't forget, today banks on deposits and lending are just making so much money. Today interest rates are 4.5%, right? So if you're keeping cash in the bank in a current account, the bank is making 4.5%. If you go and convert that cash into wealth, the bank is now making 1.5% management fees from the fund manager, kickback 50%. So they're cannibalizing the P&L. And I don't think, even when we were at a 0% interest rate, like a low interest rate environment, the bank is always trying to, convert deposits to wealth. But bottom line is they're making so much money, right? I'll use HSBC as an example. I think less than 5% of their revenues comes from wealth, right? So I don't see much changing there, to be honest. On the private banking side, slightly different. I mean, the market's becoming more educated. Don't forget, like, I don't want to like shit on private banks, right? So if you're a $10 million plus or you're ultra high net worth, you're getting access to sophisticated advice for sure. But again, if you're that $5 million client, you're an incubator account for the private bank. And so because you're an incubator account, their cost to serve is around $20,000 plus, right? To serve a client, which means on a $2 million relationship, like you need to be making like above 2%, right? And so it's hard for them to change that model unless they say, you know what, they have two options, right? They either say we're not even going to touch 1 to 10 anymore any longer, and say only 10 plus, or they can digitize similar to what we've done to lower their cost to serve. If that happens, I mean, it could. I'm not gonna, be naive and say it can't happen. It definitely could, but I know, the bureaucracy with banks and the friction, like it takes for any decision to happen, it takes 10 years to be executed, right? By then, like we're growing at such a fast pace, we're already acquiring, clients and building and taking market share. For anyone to come and copy us later, I don't worry. And I want to highlight one last thing. I really encourage competition because the market is so big that, we're looking to obtain 1% market share of the cash available in the region. We talk about liquid net wealth, we talk about what's, cash held. And that's because of the education gap, right? As we succeed as a player in converting or shifting the mindset of why you shouldn't be holding cash, over the long term, more players will come to the market, and I think as it's just a healthy environment for all of us, right? So I don't worry about it.
Sami, I'm going to end with this. What's the next big milestone for Vault?
Look, there's a lot of things in the pipeline. I mean, we're going to be entering a new market. We'll hopefully be announcing that in a few months. So that's going to be, a sort of big milestone for us. We're we've so we've just closed the financing round. That's going to be announced. Well, it's going to be announced in a few days. By the time this comes out, maybe a bit longer. But we just raised a very large round with a notable investor to really help us now sort of scale and grow fast. So hopefully, as a brand, don't forget, like I said, building trust is really like our core right now as a brand. And so us, being more visible into the market and whether it's offline, online marketing is going to be big for us. Other milestones really is that, look, for us, it's we really want to ensure that if anyone thinks about wealth management, whether you're a client, whether you're a wealth advisor, if you're in the industry, like Vault should be the gold standard, right? And that's a really a milestone I think we've crossed. Again, we're still early in. Um, but yeah, all in all, it's just continue growing. Clients will continue referring, hopefully, because they're happy with the service they're getting and the products they're getting. I think, like I said, the new market we're entering is going to be a big milestone, and how we scale from there. I think later on, as we see the success of that new market, we'll potentially look at other, regional markets to get licensed in and sort of become not just a MENA player, but potentially, a global one. We always benchmark the US, we benchmark Europe, we benchmark, these more sort of advanced regions. But I've seen the products and I've seen what they offer, and I really believe like we can make such a bigger impact with what we've done. That can really be a service and a product provided across the globe. So a lot of milestones, but the focus, ultimately, it's keep our heads down, focus on the clients, deliver a great product, iterate on the platform from client feedback. That's really all we care about right now.
So yeah, I know you're really busy, so I really appreciate you taking the time. Thank you so much.
No, it's been a pleasure, honestly. Thank you so much for having me.